All right, guys, this is All the Leads Probate Mastermind call number 94. This is Chad Corbett, your lone host today. Unfortunately, all three of my partners are evacuating for Hurricane Matthew and boarding up our corporate headquarters and their houses. So just me for the day. A reminder, anyone who has a question, comment, anything to share, please press *6, wait a moment, and then press 1. We do have some folks in the queue, and we'll jump right to it. 4364, you are live.
Hey, Chad, it's Ryan from Colorado.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, okay, so my question today, two questions, other material besides letters and then timeline. So I understand the letters that we're going to send out. That's easy. I got that. I understand it. But is there any other stuff that, like on a typical listing, we send out a packet, a pre-listing packet, or a bio about us? Is there any success around that in terms of sending more material out besides the letters? And then the second question is, I just want to understand the timeline, just in real brief, again, in terms of how the probate's going to go down. And I feel like I'm missing something, like the court has appointed it. They've got a timeline. There's a final decision to be made by the court, and I just want to be an expert around that and understand, you know, what goes on and what I have to know that could come up in that.
Okay, so the first question, marketing. The first thing that comes to mind for me is Bud Thompson shared in our Facebook group, shared a trifold that he had a designer make, and he was generous enough to put that up there so you can kind of grab the template. If you go to All the Leads Mastermind Facebook group, you can grab that trifold. He's had really good luck with that, both with attorneys and with the actual personal representatives. So you can drop it as another mail piece. You can send it in your pre-listing package. I spend about an hour, probably 30 minutes in Probate Mastery kind of showing everybody exactly how I do it. I have a ridiculously simple marketing strategy. So I don't really have pre-list packages or iPad presentations or anything like that. I focus on the relationship more than anything, more than collateral. So I don't have a whole lot to offer like probate-specific collateral that you can send, but that is the one thing that I know people have really liked and has worked really well for Bud. And you can grab that today if you just jump in the Facebook group and look under files.
Okay.
The second part of your question, I'm going to leave that to you. So there are 3,143 counties in the United States and 4 different court jurisdictions that handle probate. So although, I have a lot of exposure through the folks I work with, there's no way I could possibly know every market. The way I did it is I went to Starbucks and bought coffee and then went to my county clerk's office and handed out coffee and smiles until I was
Hello? Chad? Hello?
Ryan, are you still there?
Hey, yeah, I lost you there for a minute.
Sorry, it's my cell signal just dropped out. I apologize, guys, if it happens again. I'll dial right back in if I disappear.
Okay.
But what I was saying, what I did, I went to the county clerk's office and just was, said, help me be a better professional and teach me this process. So I learned all the nuances of my local probate process. So that's kind of the best education you can get. You can learn a lot in many markets just simply by Googling, probate court, my county. And some counties have great resources. Like in California, they publish pretty much any county I've looked at, you can find the entire probate code. And, if you can translate the legalese, you can read it right there. Some other counties have a simple web page just with a phone number and an address. So you just have to kind of look in your county. But The other way is through the probate attorney that you get to know. They can really help educate you on the process. And, you can approach it as, hey, listen, I'm just getting started in this, and you've got such a strong why, and you have your foundation, that an attorney is going to want to have that conversation with you for sure. So, hey, I really want to do the best job possible and have a deep understanding of this. Can I take you to lunch and just kind of ask you some questions about our local process? And you're also building a relationship with that attorney while you're doing it. So you're educating him on what your foundation does and what your real estate company is going to do as part of that.
Okay, cool. Yep, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me check the queue here again. All right, we have nobody else in the queue. So press *6, wait a moment, and hit 1 if you have another question. While I'm waiting, I will say that yesterday, Ryan, who was just on, joined us for the probate role play call. And we had a good role play call. I think we went through 3 or 4 different scenarios, different than the previous 3 or 4 calls. So those calls get better and better. So thanks to everybody who participated, and to you too, Ryan. So if you weren't on that call and you'd like to listen to it, I am traveling through the 10th, but I'll have it up on the Facebook page as soon as I get back next week. So we do have one more person in the queue, 5167. You are live.
Hey, Jad, this is Dan in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Just a quick question. Same question that was on the Facebook page earlier this week. When is the best time to call? After the first mailer, or should we call after the third mailer?
I prefer to follow each letter with a phone call. And the message that I leave or kind of how I start the call is, hey, Dan, this is Chad. I sent you a letter last week. I just wanted to make sure you got that and you understood why we sent it. You remember seeing that? So it warms up your phone call just a little, but definitely drop a phone call between, after each letter. Now, we do have, we obviously have worked with some bulldog prospectors that just can't wait for the letter to go, and they just go straight to the phones, and they do fine. It's just a little bit different intro. It's a colder call. You have to explain a little bit more about why you're calling. And if you listen to when I posted, if you weren't on the role play call, when I post the recording next week, we role played. Actually, one person was they were sending a courier package, a pre-listing package, and if the person wasn't home, then a note would be left that says, please call to schedule delivery. And that's about as cold as it gets, because they're like, "What? Why are you trying to send me a package?" Well, then you have to educate them, throughout the whole process. So the letter helps warm your phone call, because they probably know who, they've probably opened it because of the nature of the mail we send. So you know that they know a certain amount about you already.
Okay. All right. Great. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. All right, guys. Nobody else in the queue. So any questions, comments? What's working for you guys out there? Somebody's had some success since last week. Let's hear, let's hear about the good listing appointments, the bad, the ugly. Ryan, you're back. So, Ryan, you're live.
Okay, so that's a good question about when to call, because I just got the new list. I'm typically used to expired calls being right as soon as I can make the call. And I guess that rolls into my first question, which was timeline. Just in general, though, do these guys, when I get this list, how much information does the executor have at this moment, and what have they learned? And so when I'm calling them, how recently has the death happened? Do we know that information and kind of where they are in the process at this point when I get the number from them?
Okay, so I'm down to 10% on my phone, and I'm not at a place where I can charge it, so I apologize. But I'll start through the timeline. So what I've found through tracking, we give you the date of death and the date of probate filing. typically, what I find in my market is a meeting of 68 days from the date of the death until the date they go to the courthouse and file the actual probate case. I've looked at it in other markets as well, and it seems to hold true everywhere I've looked. So you can expect that someone has passed away. On average, there's going to be about a 2-month period where they kind of process everything, and eventually they get to a point where they say, okay, I'm going to raise my hand and tell the world I'm ready to settle this. So that by the time they show up on your probate list, it's probably 2 months from the death. And there's obviously going to be exceptions. I've had some that were a week and some that were back to 1984. I've done, several that were a couple of years, and it's mainly because people are heavily grieving. They didn't quite know the process. They kind of, really put their head in the sand and just didn't ask what needed to be done, and they have to kind of backtrack and probate that estate. But typically, it's going to be a couple of months, and there are so many variables in this that there's no good or bad time to call, because everyone's going to move at a different pace. There's going to be, a single heir versus 10 heirs. You just never know. Each of these is like a thumbprint. So the best thing you can do is just call as soon as you get in the list. I mean, as soon as you're comfortable making the calls and reaching out is the best time. And the only competition we really have as real estate agents is our investors. And typically, they're not going to have the phone numbers. They've learned to go to the courthouse, gather the data, send a We Buy Houses letter or yellow letter or postcard, and wait for the phone to ring. And we have an edge because we have about 90% accurate phone numbers, which is a phenomenal rate and something we're pretty proud of. And the market's really, really competitive market. Our agents are, beating out the competition because they are the first and only phone call. So really, don't worry about when you're calling. Just make sure when you're really confident that they're better off hearing from you than not is the best time to call.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, guys. Anyone else who has anything to share, please press *6 and then 1 to enter the queue. Okay. Sorry, guys. The app was buggy on me there. So nobody else in the queue. Certainly somebody has something you're getting stumped on, a marketing question. My conference call app crashed, and I saw you back in here. Did you have another question, or were you left over?
You can hear me?
Yes.
No, I'm looking at the trifold. Bud Thompson. Yeah, this is really great. Does he give this out in his letter, or does he go door to door and give this out, or when he meets with them? When does he usually present this?
I think he uses it in a lot of different ways. With attorneys, he'll put it in with the letter. And Bud is, you can, tag Bud on Facebook. Just do @Bud Thompson, THOMSEN. And he's a very, very generous person that will share, what's working with you. So feel free to tag him and compliment him and thank him and ask him how he's found it best to be used.
Okay.
I have three more folks. Thank you. 5167, you are live. 5167. Three, 4, 5, 8. You are live.
Hello. Hi, I was wondering how soon should we call? The day that we get the leads, or wait a few days after we think they've received the letter?
It's personal preference. I prefer to call the day that the letter hits, or within a couple of days of the letter hitting. Like I said earlier, we do have prospectors who are, just used to calling early and often that have done really well. For me, I just found it best to get the letter in their hand first. And usually what I would find is that the day the mail would run, my web visits would shoot up. I would get about, if I sent 100 letters, I would probably have 20 to 50 web hits that afternoon that the mail ran. So people were reading the PS line of my letter said, P.S. If you're not ready to talk to anybody just yet, please visit this website. And telling me that, they opened the letters, they went to the website, they learned more about me. So when I made when I dropped the phone calls or made the calls, it was a much warmer conversation because they already knew why I had reached out, because the letter explained that.
How do you know about those hits on your website? Where do we look to see that?
On WordPress, there's a part of WordPress called Jetpack, and I use a WordPress site, so I would just use a Jetpack. If you use Google Analytics, there's a 24-hour lag, so you would see it the next day.
So I just have whatever the website that your company set up for me.
Okay.
And so,
if Jetpack is on those sites, you could email Mark, M-A-R-C, at alltheleads.com and ask him if Jetpack is available.
Okay.
I wouldn't get lost in the granularity. I was just saying that to kind of just so you can understand how the people have behaved in my experience. So it tells me they're reading the letter and looking for information about me.
I see.
So it's good to call after the letter because of that.
Okay. And then if the letter goes out on a Monday, say for instance, then Thursday would be the best day to start calling them?
Yep, typically 3 days for first.
Okay. All right, I think that answers my question.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Guys, I'm at 5%, and I know I'm rushing through this. We've got one more person in the queue. If anyone else has a question, please press *6 and then 1, and hopefully 5% will be enough for me today. So call 2821. You're live.
Hey, Chad, it's Bud Thompson. How you doing?
Hey, he's on here. How are you, bud?
Hey, pretty good. I think your helmet mic is acting up. I think you're about gone. But are you on your bike?
I'm on top of the tallest mountain in Vermont right now, looking at 360-degree views of New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. So I apologize. We weren't really planning on a Category 4 hurricane, so I didn't mean to host a call from the top of the mountain. I thought Jim would be here, but
yeah. Anyway, I came on late and I heard some guy talking about the trifold. I use that thing. I mail it out with my letters 3 times over 3 months, and I use a business-sized envelope and mail your option letter and my trifold. Is what I do.
And have you gotten good feedback on that, bud?
Well, right now I've got one listed at $275, and get a signing yard. But anyway, I asked them about it, and it was 3 sisters in their 40s, and I asked them what was it that caused you to call me, and they said it was a combination of the letter and the trifold. Because one, they like the letter, they like your option letter a lot. It was unobtrusive, it wasn't pushy, and they had received a lot of pushy stuff from investors. And they liked the trifold because I think it had a color picture of an old man and an old woman on it, so that was me and my wife. So I don't know, It's probably superstition that I just throw them together and put them out. But so I've tried it without sending it and get no response at all. So anyway, I just think it might be superstitious, but I think it's helping my response rate, my callback rate a little bit.